Yes. So again, my name is Roderick Neal. I am the secretary for on the board for ASCM Houston, and of course, our topic today: dispelling the myths of AI in supply chain planning. It's a, I believe, it's a very great topic actually because you're thinking about how we're going to plan for the future. A lot of times, we look at AI as a negative thing. How's it going to affect our job? How's it going to impact? So there's also some positives as well. I'm sure that there's going to be able to share. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce Mr. Bob Carbo, excuse me.
All right. Thank you, Roderick. I'm going to share my screen and get started. Hopefully everybody can now see my screen okay.
Got it.
And as Roderick and Tammy mentioned, we're iChain Consulting. I have here with me my partner. I will introduce us just in a moment. So the myths of AI in supply chain planning, and there's lots of questions. There's lots of anticipation and anxiety. I think we're here to put people at ease a little bit. For one thing, you're going to see some real world examples that we're going to show in actual supply chain planning solution for the chemicals industry. And so very relevant industry that we have experience in that we thought we'd share given we're in Houston, Texas, most of us today. And so obviously a very prevalent industry that many of us are involved in. So, from a supply chain planning perspective, we've had traditional heuristics and machine learning based AI inside these planning systems. Some of us can recall for several decades now. So that's one aspect that we want to kind of level set on today, and then the newer exciting topics of AI around generative AI and chat AI and what those mean in terms of how we can get access to the most important questions or the most important data elements that we need to effectively run supply chains. That's essentially what we're going to cover, and I think the the putting everybody's mind at ease a little bit is the fact that you're now going to be able to access and this is not necessarily a futuristic topic as much as it is what's here and now and what's possible today. So you're now able to get answers to questions that previously required lots of iterations of spreadsheets and managing across multiple data sets and doing some really difficult exercises, pulling data and information together to answer the key questions that we need to answer to respond to our customers, our leadership, and events that occur in supply chain. So we'll take it away and just do a quick intro. So my background is 27 plus years in supply chain. I think that's closer to 30 plus now at this point. Spent a lot of time in executive leadership, but also, into the depths of demand planning, supply planning, production scheduling, service parts planning in high tech. Spent time in the chemicals business, in packaging and contract manufacturing, as well as in planning downstream and specialty chemicals. So, have started a couple new ventures over the years in high tech supply chains, and have a lot of experience with developing new ventures. Recently, last about a year ago, joined iChain with the founder here, Ravi Chawla. Ravi, is one of those that's practically a professor of supply chain and well known in industry. Has probably again closer to 30 plus years now at this point, but really strong from a systems perspective, comes from industrial engineering, educational background, so brings process and system discipline thinking to everything he does. Was one of the early pioneers at Oracle and JD Edwards, in the demand planning and production scheduling and advanced planning tools that have evolved over the many years. So we welcome Ravi and thank him for joining. I'm going to kick us off with a little story that Tammy loves, and hopefully most of you recognize this character on this screen. My first ASCM, as it was then known, Apex presentation was alongside the world famous Mattress Mac, and so participating in ASCM can take lots of turns and develop some really interesting positive relationships over the years. And my first experience, I was president of the Texas A&M chapter and was presenting on Top Management Night, which is coming up in June. So you never know who you're going to meet at those Top Management Night events. And lo and behold, the keynote speaker that night was none other than Mattress Mac. And Jim McIngvale, of course, is the founder and owner of Gallery Furniture here in Houston. He has an incredible story of the humble beginnings of the company, but also how they made choices in their strategy, their customer-centric business model, their logistics choices, and how they ran quality management inside the company back then was really interesting. So the result for me was that night at the ASCM Top Management Night, I had several interviews that got set up, and actually my first job offer at Max behest to the crowd to talk to me after he met me was really something I'll be forever thankful for. So hopefully, so if you want some inside juice from that, definitely email me. I always like meeting interesting people, and I think in this world of supply chain, that's one of the most fascinating things about this field is the interesting businesses and people and personalities that we all develop relationships with. A little bit about iChain. Our firm was started in 2008. So over the almost 18 years now. We've had about 170 go lives in supply chain planning tools. Tools like Oracle and Kinaxis are some of the planning platforms that we work most prevalently with today. But obviously, those get deployed against a backdrop of ERP systems like SAP and many others as well. And so we're accustomed to working across some pretty broad technologies. But where we live and breathe day in, day out, demand planning, demand forecasting, finite scheduling, constraints-based supply planning, master production scheduling, all of the core supply chain solutions and processes is where we really focus. We're a boutique and small firm, but have teammates like Ravi and myself that have lots of experience. Our claim to fame is we'll bring a more experienced team at a rate that's significantly lower than say the big four because this is a boutique and we don't have the overhead. We offer in the lower left our offerings. We do a lot of chief supply chain officer advisory work, just helping study and provide answers to complicated problems that heads of supply chain and leadership often deal with, whether that's supply chain operating model, whether it's organizational structure, roles and responsibilities, and then how to best adapt given the capabilities and solutions that are out there in the market. We're in the upper right, a partner, as I mentioned, of both Kinaxis and Oracle. We have strong practices with both of those technologies. We even resell in certain cases the software solutions. And today we've implemented and supported over 60 clients. We have some clients that have maintained a relationship with us in almost a planning as a service kind of offer for more than 14 years. We've had clients that have been with us year in, year out, doing the day-to-day planning, adaption or adoption of the planning tools and continuing to evolve those tools as folks' business models change. So we live and breathe in this space. So in terms of today, just want to do a quick recap. As it was mentioned, this is part two of this dispelling the myths of AI in a modern perspective of what the planning tools today can do with AI and how planners and planning teams can benefit from it. So we'll do a quick recap. We do want to kind of cover some of the key industry challenges. We want to talk about forecasting improvements. We're going to show you kind of a digital twin of an example supply chain. We'll touch on multi-echelon inventory optimization because in the chemical industry that so many of us are in, that's a big topic. And then we'll get into some live examples in the actual planning tools. One of the things that we often see is myths and questions that we often hear. Ravi's going to go through some of the key questions, but what we teed this up last week, and some of the questions folks tend to ask, starting in the upper left. Should I embark on, a pilot or some type of experiment with custom AI using Microsoft Copilot or Google or AWS, some of those tools, or should I lean on, Kinaxis or Oracle or SAP and some of the packaged AI that they have, and what's the difference in those approaches? A lot of folks are trying to figure out that maybe they've run an experiment and they're trying to figure out how do I quantify the value. These are questions that we help answer often in our advisory services, helping build a business case and a roadmap for specific pointed areas of AI that can help you. Data readiness. Obviously, AI is only as good as the data that we feed it. And the answers that the AI gives are highly dependent on data. So we touch on that today, and that's a big part of our practice is data preparation. Um, in the far left, should we hire data scientists? There is a need for data science capabilities and skills in our organizations increasingly. What we are finding is many of the modern tools help alleviate some of that need by taking some of the data science um, processes and needs and embedding those further in the tools so that you don't have to have those kinds of skills. But at the end of the day, that's a big question, and figuring out where you draw that line is important. So just a few examples, and we'll give you a quick drive-by now of our clients. If you participated last week, you saw the results of this survey and analysis that we did with our client base over 17 plus years. We say that seems that about two-thirds of our clients, 67%, have delivered a data science project in supply chain planning, leveraging some aspect of machine learning. And most of that's been focused on demand forecasting. So demand forecasting has always been a hot topic for algorithmic applications, and machine learning is becoming more and more prevalent because of the ability to leverage the cloud platform tools that have machine learning, but also the supply chain planning tools are increasingly exposing machine learning and algorithmic capabilities that you can tune and tailor. From 2 to 4, that's the number of months that clients on average are investing in data preparation before embarking on supply chain planning AI projects. We find that we can have a pointed, sort of rapid approach to data preparation when we use the discipline of the supply chain planning tools. We'll often use those as sort of a guidebook to do the data preparation and data loading and cleansing. Over half our clients are now using generative AI and chat AI kind of features. I'd say that number will be 100% by the end of this year. Everybody's using it in some form or fashion. starting with my teenagers in high school all the way through, obviously, us in the planning field. Um, Automation. So this next one, the 83, this is a percent of our clients who are really, moving forward with automating some of the planner activities, whether that's scheduling, whether that's forecasting, whether that's S&OP. We are seeing increasing automation, which is a good thing. And then lastly, I think this last one, the 48%, this is really folks getting heavy into using your data and having a data-driven approach to driving more automation in the parameter settings and in the segmentation strategies that the tools need in order to do effective planning. So this is a rich feature set that we see in Oracle, we see in Kinaxis, where you can have data-driven approach to setting parameters to get answers and get the systems respectively set up so that you get more effective inventory policy and material segmentation and so forth, customer segmentation. These are overall the most prevalent areas that folks are embarking on AI today. We mentioned demand planning and statistical forecasting and the advent of AI ML tools. New product introduction. So we've had for many years we've introduced the concept of having like products and having systems recognize like products. Maybe it's a like technology that you've introduced in a new product in the past, or maybe it's a product that's fit for a similar market. That capability has always been there in most of the advanced planning systems. And what we're seeing now is with AI, the system is recognizing data patterns given attributes of products that you can introduce that give you some some corollaries or similar products you've introduced in the past, and the system more readily availing you to figure out which of those patterns would be most appropriate for the new product you're launching. Inventory planning and optimization. I think everyone that's in chemicals, if you're dealing with that space, that's something we're going to get into a little deeper today. Very prevalent field for AI. Event response in both demand and supply. Um, Recognizing patterns and coming up with a set of prepackaged event responses is something that we're seeing to help automate and make lives easier for planners. Probably the biggest game changer in all of this, though, is the user interface and ability to have a conversation with your system and your data. Just simple questions that you can ask the system now with the advent of Gen AI and Chat AI. And that's where Robbie's going to spend quite a bit of time showing you some use cases later today. So through all of that, here's some examples of results that folks are realizing in the by tapping into AI. A few examples. Upper right, energy, oil, and gas use case. We had a client that used previously really untapped tank data and correlated that with point of sale data and got a huge reduction in forecast improvement in forecast accuracy or reduction in forecast error. That's a really interesting use case because pulling together data in those kinds of fashions that were previously really unrelated and kind of hard to correlate across a time series and across history. Now that's becoming easier and easier, both due to the scale of cloud-based systems as well as the advent of increased AI. So I won't go through those, but happy to, if you see one of these that you want to ask questions about, certainly put it in the chat. And as I turn over to Robbie in a moment, I'm happy to give more background or send me an email. Drop Ravi or I an email. We'll share our email address and happy to talk more about any of these topics. Okay, so let's set up chemical industry a little bit because that's where we're going to kind of spend our time in the software in just a moment. These are some of the industry challenges that we encounter. Overall, chemicals we picked as a use case to discuss today because of the complexity. It's one of the more complex industries to do supply chain planning, and we think one that has a lot of value. So let's get dig into it. From an operational perspective, these are companies that have typically, extremely high volumes, and they deal with a low mix, and so there's a need to leverage these vast capital investments and keep plants and assets running 24/7 in a mostly continuous manufacturing mode. There's a high need for collaboration. You've got external partners in the form of contract manufacturing. You've got often an intricately dependent supply chain on other vendors, other chemical companies that are feedstocks or co-products. And so there's really a need for tight collaboration. Um, Again, you've got packaging and filling operations that are an extension really of your own operation. And so dependency there, obviously, any bottleneck at any point along the way can be a challenge in terms of planning. Managing product changeovers, how you sequence those changeovers, what's required, and then along with that, the maintenance downtime and planning for that. We see long lead times, and obviously, given long lead times, there's demand and supply variability that occurs during those lead times, which then drive your inventory strategy and the need for forecasting. You've got complex contracts, volume commitments, pricing contracts, and then lastly, highly distributed and global operations, and that creates an elongated supply chain, which is very challenging. In the specifics of supply chain planning, we see, uh, the need for many products to understand seasonality. We have ag chem, we have um, uh, you know companies that make products that are fed into the construction business. Those tend to be highly seasonal in nature. And so you've got to do significant build ahead because the utilization run rates don't necessarily support a run rate to meet seasonality requirements without some significant stocking and building ahead, which then creates complexity of planning as well. You've got feedstocks in chemistry and chemical industry. You've got co-products and byproducts. So um, really managing across, keeping all of that in sequence and aligned requires a really robust safety stock strategy, and then monitoring that safety stock and cycle stock to understand demand impacts and supply impacts. And as soon as you start talking about safety stock and build ahead, now you've got the challenge of storage capacity, storage in raw materials, storage in WIP, storage in um, finished goods, and then storage, all along the logistics channel, both inbound and outbound. And in logistics, chemical industry has, of course, multi-mode transportation planning. And as soon as you introduce multi-mode and the need for railroads, Tammy and I were talking the other day, having recalled multiple points in our career where we had challenges working across, railroad schedules and rail car deliveries and demurrage and all of the challenges with a multi-mode planning. So this leads to the need really for complex inventory optimization and solutions today that offer multi-echelon inventory optimization and really trying to understand the impacts of variability on my safety stock requirements and how I plan. inventory at every node of the supply chain. And that's a lot of where we spend time, because oftentimes we find that teams don't necessarily have those skills in terms of advanced statistics and the advanced planning requirements to really tune and optimize a system. That's where iChain comes in and really helps bring some additional value, some additional skills to the teams. Then there's the external influences that we all love. Many of us will recall, not only hurricanes but ice storms from past years. We had to jump in and help clients in the plastics space a few years back when we had ice storms all across the South and shutting down plants for elongated period of time. We've got obviously geopolitical risks and changes in political climate and governance, not only in terms of what's going on today with the energy markets, but in terms of energy transition and ESG monitoring and managing and scoring those suppliers. You've got pricing issues in chemistry. We need to know at what stage should we sell our products? Should we take, marketing and planning folks are making decisions about work in process materials, and given changes in commodities prices, is it better to add value to a product, or is it better to sell it as an intermediate? And then there's people impacts. I won't go through all of these, but we all know that we're at the end of the day, we're people working across these supply chains, whether it's aging workforce and the loss of skills as folks, reach retirement age, whether it's knowledge transfer gaps as, folks move around organizations, the need for more and more mobility, and then lastly, cross skilling across the multiple functions in our organizations can really help us, but also make it more challenging to retain some of that planning knowledge and skill. We hear you is I guess the message. We have a couple of quotes here from customers we talk with. Growth is a theme, and I think disparate systems and all of this requires the need for integration and the need to get at data. And I think the AI solutions we're going to talk about increasingly help us in that regard. Really, we see kind of three sub verticals in chemicals. Core, chemicals that come out of really refining. One of the key questions we see there is how can you run campaigns that maximize throughput? It's all about generating throughput and that high asset utilization in that space. And then you move over to the specialty chemicals segment, whether that's supporting chemicals that support exploration in energy, or chemicals that then become feedstocks to other industries. There it becomes that optimization of inventory. You're kind of in the middle, so you've got more significant collaboration with your upstream and downstream suppliers and customers, and of course the logistics providers, especially rail and midstream pipelines. And then lastly, we're going to walk through actually a use case from what would be considered a downstream intermediate chemical company that we work with. This one's, all about how do you maximize fulfillment and create the most profitable demand given the intermediates you produce. So a few questions that I think are, really relevant and often heard in these subverticals. More industry trends. Look, we're all dealing with sustainability. We've got, localization in terms of, taking data at a macro level and really understanding in a local environment and then rolling those plans back up. And folks are making, lots of capital investment choices, whether that's in your infrastructure at the plant, or in digitalization initiatives like the planning tools that we're going to show you. Today, we're going to give an example out of Kinaxis Maestro. Kinaxis Maestro is what Gartner calls, the leading supply chain planning platform for the chemicals and industrial industries. They really kind of span the gamut of supply chain planning and execution. So we're going to show you a quick example of how AI is embedded in the Maestro platform to make the planners work much easier and more productive. In the chemical industry, these are a few examples of what Kinaxis Maestro offers and the things that chemical companies find most interesting. Really, it touches on most everything that I've talked about. In addition to the things I've talked about, batch planning, obviously, batch runs are very important to a chemicals business. There's a lot of sophistication there. Um, on the right side, inventory pooling, and really understanding how material flows and connecting those to customer demands with your raw materials and really aligning that sequencing of operations to ensure that you're getting the most revenue out of the inventories that you buy. One of the things we haven't really talked about here is that um, inventory becomes an investment hedging strategy in chemicals. So it's not just a cost, it's also a decision of, you know, um, do I strategically acquire increased inventory uh, to take advantage of trends that my organization may be seeing in the market? And so that capability is also here to really measure and understand pricing impacts and what's the value of holding additional inventory. Infinium has a great use case. This organization is specialty chemicals. Many of us are probably familiar. They had upwards of 9 ERP systems, but more importantly, they had the age-old familiar problem of Excel and spreadsheets were really how they ran their planning organization. And when they started their project, they had kind of taken an inventory of how many spreadsheets planners were using across the S&OP and S&OE processes that they had. And they come up with an inventory of 260 plus sort of standardized spreadsheets that they really needed to use to run their process end to end. And when they kind of then dug into the details of what those spreadsheets were doing, they found over 450 cross-functional interfaces. And so the manual effort just to pull off an S&OP and then drill into S&OE, or actually execution of planning, and then integrate that with finance was really challenging. They had 79 sites, 5 regions, and just some huge issues that were challenging in planning. At the end of the day, in their business being more in the specialty space, they were relying way too much on air freight. And so these are some of the impactful numbers they saw after going through a supply chain planning AI initiative. 90% reduction in air freight, huge reduction in demurrage and then a large inventory reduction. So some fantastic results. Definitely one of many chemical companies leveraging this platform. Here in Houston, we've got Westlake and Lubrizol. There's probably others I'm missing just as examples. So with that, I've taken a good bit of your time, and I appreciate the time today. I want to turn it over to my colleague Ravi, who's going to take us from here and explore, the specifics of how the AI is being used in Maestro and modern supply chain planning systems that are similar to it. So, Ravi.
And Bob, I got you. Okay, no worries. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks a lot, Bob, for a great kind of start up there, kind of getting all the basics of why we are doing what we are doing, right? Because these systems sometimes are really tough to implement, right? So all the reasons why we need such planning systems with things changing now. And Bob was also talking about the use case we have today is about one of our customers who, for years, I know them, were like pretty stable business, right? Very well carved out market share, very stable. But suddenly, I think a year or two ago, regulations started to change where they were providing food colors which were synthetic, right? And then now a lot of governments, state governments, internationally also recognizing and requiring them to come up with these colors from a natural sources, right? If you wanted something yellow, you get it from turmeric. You wanted something black, get it from black carrot. So their supply chain was kind of topsy-turvy, right? And the demand is kind of dependent on all these regulations which are happening, right? So that's where I think planning systems kind of take a real big importance, where the business is changing and in one of the dimensions, and then how soon can we react and how well you can plan it, right? And if you remember last week, I kind of put out some questions like, okay, if I, and that can apply to any company, right? And we'll try to answer some 4 or 5 of these questions, looking at the software and how AI is impacting us, right? How are we incorporating? How is companies like Kinaxis and Oracle incorporating AI elements naturally so that the usability of these tools are enhanced, right? How easy can we get the answers without being an expert? And once it is set up, we don't need per se a data scientist or a statistician or somebody who really knows well how this works, but just a matter of asking the right questions to the system, right? So in this case, I mean, I'm one of the first questions I think the demand, like I said, is changing a lot, and this customer needs to be able to replan things in a very effective manner, right? Um, Assuming you all can see my screen, right? They're seeing a PowerPoint right now. Yep. Okay, cool. So then I think so I'm kind of just showing up a dashboard here, and right now my demand is fairly set up right. This line kind of shows my budget and my plan forecast and how I've been kind of in actuals, dealing with it, what open orders and back orders I have, right? How much I've consumed them, right? So pretty stable right now, right? And suddenly, like, if let's say if I get an indication that my demand is changing, right? And these modern tools, right, can actually immediately react to that. And then if I say, okay, in one of the scenarios, my demand is changing here, it kind of starts to lay out not only what the demand increases, right? But it also is relaying, okay, what amount of quantity which I was kind of planning is at risk now, right? So we're gonna dig into that, right? But and then again, like I'm trying to show the example and trying to respect the customers, information. It's very generic, right? So it's a demo environment. Food colors natural versus food colors synthetic is the group, right? And we have various products within the natural products which can come based on the color, might come from different ingredients and different processes. Um, so in this diagram, I mean, in this scenario, I mean, okay, my demand is changing. Okay, how does that impact something, right? So I'm gonna try to go to a different screen with more details. Okay. And I'm assuming it's not too small, right? You're able to see that numbers, okay? It's a lot of numbers, I know, but so this is a typical, demand planning screen, right? You can have the budget, your latest finance numbers, sales, marketing inputs, right? Statistical, and this is where I basically, just for the sake of time, I just added these demands, right? I mean, I could potentially go in and change this number to, let's say, 6,000, right? Uh, 6,000. Okay. So, and the moment I actually save here, right? Sorry about that. Okay. The moment I just save this number, what happens in these modern systems, right, is that it's not only updating the demand, but it's also updating the supply. It's going through all the bill of materials, all the various plans it needs to go through, it's running the MPS, MRP, DRP right at that same instance. And that's the power of concurrent planning or prescriptive AI, right? Where, that's a conglomeration of ML, heuristics, optimization, right? All of that kind of acting, plus all the power of the CPUs and data centers we got now, right? Everything is in cloud. It can take, and in seconds, it can kind of say, okay, yep, you got the demand increase, great, but we have risk, right? Now,
Hey,
I,
Ravi,
yes.
just quickly, could you share your screen? I was trying to keep up just using the PowerPoint screenshots, but I think you've got a better screen you want to show.
Um, so you're not able to see my screen, Bob?
I'm gonna, it's still in the Zoom, my share, I believe. So,
What about the other folks?
I
So
can see
I
your
see the,
spreadsheet, Ravi.
Okay, cool, very cool.
yeah.
all right.
No, no problem. Bob, it's your problem this time.
Okay, good.
Okay, cool. So now this information sometimes can be intimidating, right? I mean, but now I think the other thing Bob was kind of talking about was that we are now this companies are embedding, like how we use Chat GPT and other elements to kind of answer our so many questions, right? They're actually embedding the AI chat on top of the prescriptive AI results which we have gotten, right? And I can kind of say, okay, hey, without going into too much details and numbers, I just want to know, what are the, I'm just going to what are the numbers where my risk quantity is higher, right? And then it basically would kind of provide the answer. It kind of gives me the results, right? And then I can say, okay, hey, by the way, this is where my results kind of are showing where my quantities are at risk. But what does that mean? Okay, my demand changed, but what are the impacts, right? Which are kind of impacting it. Like, so this was the demand change, right? Which I just showed you guys. Now, then the next question is that, okay, yeah, demand has changed, but what's all at risk now at this point that I cannot supply in the future, right? Because we're still planning, right, guys? So then the system say, okay, yeah, I mean, yeah, I've got that figured out for you as well. And then, I mean, and these systems are very configurable, right? So you can kind of quickly look at the demand plan where and then this graph kind of shows all the forecast which is on time, and the yellow portion will show all the forecast which is going to be at risk, right? And again, like I said, I can see this information easily, but I can also kind of keep interacting. I mean, if I did not know the software well, I can keep asking these questions to the system, saying, okay, which demands periods have at risk quantity, right? And then it can also show me, okay, which are the items which are most most impacted, right? So I can ask. And sometimes, I kind of mess up my questions, but I mean, it generally understands my concept, right? I mean, so it kind of gives me that same list which you saw. And so, again, just from a conversation perspective, right? It is now able to extract all the information which the prescriptive AI kind of calculated. Now, this was, in my experience, the biggest problem we had for years and decades, where the information was all there in the systems, but you needed some specialists to really extract and understand the data, right? But having these AI tools for users on the top can really quickly summarize the issues which we kind of facing here, right? So that's kind of the best part from my perspective, which is happening, and which I feel like Bob was saying, that this AI bots are going to be the most fastest adaptable, right? But the challenges which I think one would face is that what kind of power do you give to these tools, right? So these companies are actually thinking very well, saying, okay, hey, if I'm a user, I'm coming in the system, and I can only see XYZ business, these product lines, this information, then my AI chat should only have that information access. And that's where our security problems are resolved, right? We're not able to see any information we're not supposed to, right? I could be a planner in the US, and I want to only see demand impact in the US, but not in Europe or Asia Pac, right? So all of that, and these AI tools can understand that and then limit amount of information which we can potentially see as well, right? Which is kind of a challenge. If you create a custom AI, then you have to kind of create all these information pieces, which the challenge we felt, you know, previous years when these companies hadn't caught up. We were trying to create these custom AI, models, and the security was such a big challenge for us, right? How we define all the functions and so forth. But just now, totally demystified for us, right? Information is very crisp, right? We can come up with all these great prompts for the users, right? I mean, you don't have to come up. They don't have to kind of think about it. We can always like in my chat here, I'm basically saying these are my top 10 questions to ask, right? Within these top 10 questions, what are the other detailed questions to ask? And if we can, train the AI with all those prompts, right? I mean, think about how much ease of the job which can happen, right? The amount of training required today from the applications can reduce, right? And you can really focus on the problem itself, not trying to find the data, exporting it out, and so forth, right? So now we have found our demand at risk, right? What now, right? So now I say, okay, let's take the help of the tool to dig in, where the problem is at, right? So I'm going to jump into the aspect of this tool, which is a second here. Okay, let's honing on a specific customer. It kind of shows let me minimize the chat for a minute. It's listing all the demand orders which are going to be late and the number of days it can be or will be late. And we saw that L1521 was our main item, which was really getting impacted. So we can see this as, as an indented bomb and saying, okay, these are all the 4 or 5 levels, and where's my issue at, right? Or I can also see, okay, can I see this in a graphical fashion, right? And this is to me super powerful. Imagine like you have multi echelons of locations, right? You have a customer, regional DC, central DC, production plants, right? Then contract manufacturers providing you products. And it is actually, in fact, giving you a graphical pegging information right at your fingertips, right? And of course, this is the information I'm showing as if I knew the application, right? But I can also ask the same questions, right? Like I've been doing in the chat AI and I can have a conversation saying, okay, hey, where are my biggest, like I can just say, okay, let me just sake of time, just gonna bring in the AI again, and I'm gonna ask, all right, I'm going to ask, hey, display all the late supply constraint for components, right? And it's going to give me that list again, right? So it's going to say, okay, yep, I think the line 12 is one of the constraints which you have, which is causing all the delays, right? Where the manufacturing is happening. And this is, like, say, same information I was seeing here, if you guys see, right? Where I had the manufacturing location and then I had this location. Then I think it's become very easy for me to say, okay, let me go drill down and figure out what's happening at line 12, right? And then I come here and see that, yep, I have huge overload requirements here, right? And my capacity is only X number of hours per week, right? So what do I do here, right? So now up until now, I mean, I've been having a conversation where I was basically saying, where's the information at? Like now, I can also create AI agents where if my alternate solutions are kind of known, right? Whether I have alternate capacity, alternate supplier, right? I can actually create these scenarios or these playbooks for the AI agent and say, hey, by the way, can you run those for me when this issue happens? So I can circumvent all the steps I showed you, right? So that's where the AI agents come in, where you can really automate some of these workflows which we have for the users, right? Obviously, you need the workflows to make sure we are logically trying to solve the problem, right? So what I did was for this meeting, I created I had a team create a AI agent, right, which can create a scenario for overtime, right? So can I, and I'm going to ask this question to this agent here, right? Yeah. Oops. I have to let them know in this case that what scenario I'm asking it to run. Okay. Okay. And then it's going to ask, okay, what you want to run this scenario? I'm going to create. So what it's going to do is it's going to take this base data, create a digital twin of the whole environment, right? All the bill of materials, everything. And then it's going to create a new scenario for me saying, okay, I'm going to try to create, and then it's saying I've created this scenario, right? And then and then in this case, what it did was it basically, we gave some parameters to it, but it basically said, okay, I'm gonna give a temporary, it's gonna figure out, what type of extra capacity do we need, and it kind of provides that extra capacity, right? We could do the same automation for alternate sources and so forth, right? So this is a pretty nice way of controlling, giving all the possible options there are, and then letting the AI agent, depending on the situation, through just our conversations, kind of figure out, okay, how many hours do I really need? How many extra hours for how long do I need? And that can come as a solution for you guys, right? And then we can actually go back and check, okay, did that fix my problems or not, right? So if I go back here and here before I had huge list of delays, right? And if I go back to that scenario which it created for me, right? You know, uh, sorry about that. Give me 1 second. Let me show it to you here. Okay. And see if you can, it basically went in and reduced all the delays we had, right? It did not solve the whole problem, but you can see compared to what I had, the demand increase scenario, where I had bunch of delays over time. Now that delays have kind of reduced and are now limited to just one bucket, which I can further work on because this bucket could be the issue because of materials for me, right? I may not have the materials. So I think I'm running out of time, so I cannot show you the material scenario, but let me quickly walk you through that. Um, in that, and then there are views where we can go in and figure out which are the gating supply items, right? And it can do alternate source, right? And if I change the alternate source, enable it, then these issues can further be resolved. And all of this, we can create all these AI agents which can automate these activities for us, right? So what we're trying to kind of show here, guys, is that I mean these tools have existed for a long time. They were little difficult to use. You needed more specialists to kind of use them. But with the advent of the AI chats, agents, the work is going to get much easier, right? Of course, you definitely need still same amount of experience of people to evaluate the results and approve these things, right? Because they're high dollar impact. So you definitely need people more on decision making, evaluating the options very quickly. But the time for analysis, right? Time for collecting all the information, kind of talking to different people, all of that is going to compress. And that's why these tools can provide solutions in minutes and you can come up with the alternate options in hours to tee up to the management to make decisions. That's about it, guys, from my side. I don't know if you guys have any questions. We can stay on for a few minutes to answer any questions you guys have.